Den 2 oktober enar studentradion från hela världen för World College Radio Day.
World College Radio Day is an international platform where students can make their voices heard
and lead the way for future generations.
Rendez-vous le 2 octobre pour World College Radio Day.
For more information, check out worldcollegeradioday.com.
You should be listening to it while you're doing your freaking homework.
This is World College Radio Day.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay at tenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugod, todo sa kayod, tulong at tulong. Lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting nagigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan.
The voice of the Blue Eagle, Radyo Katipunan 87.9.
Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan. Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay at tenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela. Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugod, todo sa kayod, tulong at tulong. Lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting at tigil. Blue and white, one big fight. Radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan, radyo, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, Katipunan, radyo, 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 Katipunan.
Good afternoon, it's Joby Miroy and RKS, our Science, Technology, and Society show at Radio Katipunan. How are you doing on this first day of October? It's officially the last quarter of the year. Who would have thought that we'd still be in quarantine up to now? So we have an interesting topic this afternoon. We have our regular panelist, Dr. Butch Ong, with us, and he's going to give us our COVID updates. And later, maybe you can see him already, our esteemed guest, Apa Ongpin. Maybe we'll ask you about the white sand. So Butch, what's up?
All right.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I have some new updates. Well, not new. It's as of September 25. We will have a new update maybe next week. No, but so far this is the latest. No.
All
Um,
right. So why don't you give us the lowdown on
all
the
right.
confirmed cases?
All right. So let's. If you allow me to share my screen, there we go. Okay. All right. So
Uh-huh.
this is the latest from the Okta research team as of September 25. No? As you know, we come up with reports almost every week or every other week, and we are due for another update next week. So far, this is for the 25th of September. No? And I'll just go through the important slides. I have around 30 slides here, but there's a lot. I'll skip. No, the Philippines has had a consistent downward trend in the daily new cases. No? So, if you recall, we used to have new cases at 4,500 to 5,000. No? Now, in a September 16 to 23 average, it's 2,988. But just recently, we had an increase. We recently had a 3,000. We hit 3,000 back, I think, about 2 days ago. No? Now, this is good news, no? The reproduction number is already below 0.94, no? And if you recall, a reproduction number of more than one means that the pandemic, the COVID-19 is still being spread in the community, no matter how high or how close it is to 1.0, no? Even 1.01, it means we are still in active transmission in the community. With an R value of less than 1, 0.98, 0.94, 0.82. It means that
So
the
what does that mean? It's the transmission is
yes,
not as rapid as before.
yes,
Kasi dati one person infected gets another person infected. Ngayon,
but
what does 0.94 mean?
it means that the transmission that there is very minimal transmission in the communities. No, so
Uh-huh.
whenever there is an individual with COVID, he's no longer transmitting or infecting someone else, and then we're just waiting for the natural course of the COVID to die out. No, so
Is that
uh,
because the isolation is more effective and contact tracing is more efficient?
there are
Is that
several reasons. There are several reasons for this. No, one of the reasons is of course the quarantine. No, we are in the what almost a year in quarantine already. No, since the first quarter of this year. Another reason is the minimal health standards, meaning the mask, the washing of hands. Some people are already doing this consistently as a habit. No. Third, immunity might have occurred already, such that people are no longer being infected as
music to my ears? Herd immunity
no,
might have happened already. That's you guys are thinking of that.
that's just one of the reasons why reproduction numbers become lower than one. But for me,
Just for the
uh,
sake of our viewers, what is herd immunity again?
herd immunity,
Uh,
yeah, herd immunity is when a community has had enough COVID or enough infection, number of infected individuals that the community has now um, gained enough
developed immunity.
developed immunity against the disease.
Yeah,
No?
but reinfection is possible, is it not?
I'm saying here that one reason for a reproduction number to be less than one is herd immunity. But in the case of COVID-19, it is not proven that you have complete immunity after even being infected. No? That poses a specific challenge to vaccine developers. But I heard some vaccines are effective already in some trials. No? There's another reason for reproduction number being less than one, and it's quite controversial. Is that people are no longer being don't are no longer being tested. No, so if there are less people being tested, then of course the number of infected individuals also the report is less. No, So those are the reasons why. But I'd like to believe that the reproduction number has decreased because of our
But the
yeah.
positivity rate, where are we in positivity rate?
All right.
Is it going down as well?
I'll go here. It is. No, the NCR positivity rate is at 10%. So we are going down.
So that went down again since last week, no?
The same as last week. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I believe
Same as
our positivity rate is less than 10 already today. And I'll just there you go.
and the target is less than 5%.
Yes, less than 5%. No, this is another bit of good news for us that the hospital utilization for NCR has already gone below the red mark, which is at 70%. So the occupancy for COVID beds, for all beds in the wards, is already 57%, and for ICU beds, 65%, meaning we are already at the level or of
Yeah.
the effective.
So
It's effective already. Um, all right. Hold on. I'll just give you one. Here the other. There you go. I just two more slides. Okay, two more slides. The start of September to mid September, we reported some areas where we had high risk. Batangas, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, Negros, and Rizal. But those areas which we tagged as high risk at the start of September, right, began to decrease. So good news for these regions: Batangas, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, Negros, and Rizal. We are seeing less and less number of new cases per day. However, last slide, some new areas started to come up: Benguet, Iloilo, Leyte, Misamis, and Nueva Ecija, has seen
Iloilo,
a
there's a
decrease.
spike.
Nag-spike siya, no? Even
Now
in
I want to ask you
yeah.
what's the case? How does it look like in Metro Manila, like in Makati, or because these are also tourist places, Makati, Manila.
All right. In general, NCR is doing very well, no? In general, no. But hold on, let me just go to my uh, projections as my last slide. There you go. So these are the projections by the last day of October, 31st of October, no? In the lower bracket, no, we will see 380,000 new cases, or total of 380,000, if we have strict compliance with the minimal health standards. No? But if we release our quarantine restrictions and we ease it further within October, we can balloon up to 410,000 cases in total. No? So we, of course, want to target 380,000 or lower, and the recommendation is still to maintain the general community quarantine. No, and I was interviewed by PT before, I think about a couple of days ago, and they asked me, how long do we have to wait? How long do we have to uh, expect GCQ? And I told them we have to look at it every 2 weeks. Our data, we see patterns every 2 weeks. No, so by the second week of October, we will look back at our data, and we can make recommendations as to releasing or easing restrictions, or going back to tighter restrictions. So every 2 weeks, our monitoring is every 2 weeks. No? So hopefully
Right.
we hit this and below, no, 380,000 or even lower. No, so that's it for my slide. It's a
All
long
right.
slide, very technical
So
slide.
actually, you're the one who suggested that we talked about the tourism industry and how it can open up again, right? Why is that? Why did you suggest that in the light of what you're telling us?
All right. We know that Boracay is opening its tourism industry, and there are protocols which point towards the safety and security of all stakeholders, including the hotels and the visitors, no, the tourists, no. And I recently I had a call from Palawan asking if why Boracay only? Can't Palawan open also? You know, so we have to look at the patterns in Mindanao and patterns in Visayas and patterns in NCR. You know, in those areas they already have MGCQ, so it's already at a lower restriction. No. But in other areas, actually Palawan is not so bad. No, Palawan isn't that bad, but we still don't have um, protocols set up like Boracay. No, and they asked me how can the Palawan or Coron, no, Puerto Princesa, how can it open? No,
So
and I
does this mean, therefore, that the tourism industry is also asking doctors, scientists on what they should do to be able to respond
yes,
to the
yes, no,
situation?
yeah,
All right. So
yeah, yeah, that's right.
so for this week, we invited our good friend here, who is in the tourism industry. I realized when I was asking myself, who can we invite? Apa Ongpin. So Apa, welcome back. Could you tell our fellow Athenians what's your, because you're known as a celebrity, but now you're in tourism. So can you just tell them what's your connection to tourism?
Well, I've always loved boats and sailing and the sea, and it is my strong belief that the Philippines should be seen from the sea because we're 7,600 islands or whatever the official number is now, and there's a huge variety of different destinations that can be reached from it. When I was, about 20 years ago, more or less exactly, I decided to go into the boat business. So I bought this boat, which is behind me in the
Yes.
background. It was built in 1961 in Hong Kong, and it was a wreck, but it was good bones, excellent design, hull, engine, whatever. So I spent about 8 years fixing it up and a lot of money that I saved from my jobs, and I took on another investor, et cetera, et cetera. And then I operated in Subic starting about 2008. Mm, and from 2008 until 2019, I actually did pretty well. I mean, my work wasn't entirely tourism. I did tourism, but I also had an industrial client who provided a base load. But never mind, that's beside the point. The thing is, I did tourism also. I brought people out to the beaches of Zambales and so on. The ones, because of the particular geography of Subic, right outside Subic Bay, there are so many beaches that are not reachable by land.
I
Okay,
see.
so nobody knows about them, and they're actually great beaches. They're very scenic. They're nice. I mean, it's not Boracay, but it's got its own particular character. So I would take people out to do that, and they would really enjoy it. And the boat was a perfect venue because, it has a baño, it has a kitchen, it has
What kind of a
stuff like
boat is that? Is it, what do you call that kind of boat? That's
well, it's actually technically a trawler yacht.
all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it has overnight accommodations. It has 4 cabins. It can sleep.
Four cabins.
Yeah, it can sleep about 12 people. Actually, it varies. No, the thing is, it has beds for 12 people, but if you are willing to sleep on the roof, which is what I do, it's
It must be
very
great.
pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really nice. Mm,
And the seas this time of year, the, I can imagine it must be, well, we're still in the typhoon season, but
no,
because it's get
Hindi
how are
na.
how where
The
like
typhoon season seems to have ended. There's no more nothing major approaching
So
the Philippines.
would it be a perfect time to get out there?
Yeah,
In the boat?
yeah. The formal sailing season is actually from November to about May. No, that's the formal sailing season. But actually, in the Philippines, you have 300 sailing days a year. You know,
300 sailing days.
sure, easily, and it's even more if you go below the typhoon belt. No, so yeah, I mean it's
Like in Mindanao and stuff.
well, actually below about Romblon is below
All
the
right.
typhoon belt. Although,
Yeah.
of course, there have been typhoons that slip through, but like Yolanda. Mm,
So Apa, are you? Let's. I'm not gonna ask you if you were because you already talked about the last time you were here. But are you looking at response and recovery
well, right now,
for you?
obviously, I have no revenue, right? I have a very
Uh-huh.
expensive overhead. I've got 5 crew. I've now got 2 boats that were actually 3 that were, I know, one of them's a small speedboat. So I've got these overheads that I've got to support, and I have no revenue
But
because there's no
if
tourism.
if people would just stay inside the boat,
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically, that's
would
all.
there be a lot of risk? Let's ask Butch if that's the setup. Because I was also thinking, you have this tours of Hollywood. People will just stay in the car. What kind of I think tourism is possible uh, if we plan or if we redesign the. But if they like in the case of Apa, people just stay in his boat. Where's the risk there?
There are some
But
tours where you stay inside the boat, and there are tours also where boats can bring you to beaches, which are isolated beaches. Like you're the only ones there. You can schedule it such that no one is there, right? So that's kind of safe, no? So for example, you take your ship, you go from beach to beach, and like beach hopping, but you're the only ones there. That's possible. But for boats that I've been in, it's more of an eating eating tour. So we go around, so from place to place, uh, going down and then
you duck.
tasting the food. That's the
You go
that's
down. It's a food
yeah,
crawl up
it's
by
a food
boat.
trip. Yeah, on a
Ah,
ship. Yeah.
That's a very valid. Actually, that's a very valid way of doing it. In Europe, they have the canal tours. I not know if you're very familiar with this, but Western Europe is crisscrossed with many canals, which were originally developed to bring cargo across countries. Right before highways, it was an
yeah.
alternative to the train system, and cheaper. No, nowadays you can take a barge, for instance. It's a special purpose built vessel, and you go from town to town in France or Belgium or whatever, and you eat your way through these towns. It's really I mean, it's a
And,
culinary
yeah.
tour. You have a chef on board
You
every
have a chef
every
on.
day. You get up, you have breakfast, then the chef goes out to the town and buys ingredients which are specialty of the town. Maybe that town has truffles or a special duck or something, and
Yeah.
then he prepares those things, on the boat, and that's where you have lunch and you have dinner. And in between, you take siesta or you bicycle alongside the boat. That's really a cool thing to do because the canals all have these roadways alongside, so you can bike, and you can bike faster than the boat actually. So you can, because the
Because the
boat just,
boat. Yeah.
you know, so you can bike faster than the boat and wait for the boat to catch up with you and get on board and have another merienda, diba?
Yeah. So Apa, would there be a possibility for you if to just bring people to these isolated spaces or just go around on the boat? Or are,
Yeah,
are
let,
you
let,
are
let me
you
let
are
me
you
talk about the
encountering
whole
difficulties? Yeah.
let me talk about the whole situation. I pay very close attention to what Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat says, because I feel she has a very good understanding of the situation, and she's an economist. She taught economics at UP for 12 years, and so she really understands it from that point of view. Now, the Philippines, about 12% of our GDP is tourism. Okay, So it's
12%.
yes,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
very, very important industry. Okay, a lot of people are focused on arrivals, which is people coming from abroad. This inbound, what we call inbound, right? And they've always put a target on the Philippines for inbound because they think that that's the most important thing. And our inbound numbers used to be just terrible. We're talking about 2 million people a year. Um, During the Pinoy years, they were able to increase it to 5 or 6 million, maybe until 7. When Mon Jimenez was Secretary of Tourism, he did a fantastic job. Okay, and even Berna really acknowledges that.
Yeah.
No? She's been able to bring it up to 8 million, close to 9. Okay, now what she points
That's a
out,
big jump.
yeah, is that of that 12% of GDP, okay, only about maybe 20% is contributed by inbound. Actually, there's so 80% of that 12% of GDP is domestic tourism. It's Filipinos visiting the Philippines. Okay, that number is important because it means that really the base of our tourism industry is us going out to see our own country. There's a lot to see and there's a lot to do. So, that's something that needs to be developed. There's another number, which is that about 7 million Filipinos travel abroad every year. Or, as I said, it's not 7 million Filipinos, it's 7 million trips. Okay. Let's say we take out the OFWs from that, which is about 4 or 5 million trips. That's still 2 or 3 million trips of Filipinos going abroad and spending their money there instead of here. Okay. Now, in a non-pandemic situation, that's natural. I mean, people want to go to Japan. It's cheap now. They want to go to Taiwan. They want to go to the US or whatever. But now it's pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So that number is the potential for the rest domestic tourism. Imagine if we could increase our 80% of 12% revenue by 30%, because that's what this represents, right?
Right.
Or 40%. So yeah, I mean, people
ordering that market that goes out. And
yeah, if we are able to capture that market domestically, that is a huge thing. Now, from my point of view, I'm sort of in the opposite situation, right? My business model depends on inbound right now. That the business model I wrote before the pandemic was, I'm going to take foreign tourists around the Philippines on a boat.
Because if I had known, then I would have taken the tour.
Yeah. But, suddenly there's no more inbound, right? And nobody knows when it's going to be back. The problem is that from a practical perspective, domestic tourism is still dead in the water. So let me give you an example, and it all has to do with the LGUs. Right now, the guidelines and stuff are so unclear. It's not clear who can go where and when. It's supposed to be essential travel and and so on and so forth. But people are able to leave Manila pretty freely. And the problem is arriving at a domestic destination.
Yeah, so that's where they'll stop you.
Yeah. I had a friend who wanted to take a tour to Puerto Galera, right? And it was a dive tour. They're a group of divers. They wanted to go to Puerto Galera and dive. And they wanted to take my boat, right? And I said, so I talked to my partner, who actually is a resident of Puerto Galera, partly. I mean, he also lives in Manila. And I said, okay, can we take these people? And he said, well, we need a permit from the mayor. It's just that the decision is up to the LGU. So we have to actually apply for the mayor, to the mayor. Not only first for the tourists to come in, we have to get the boat in. And remember that 3 of my 5 crew are technically residents of Puerto Galera.
So when there is a port, or there's a kind of customs,
we have a mooring. We have a mooring in
Ah.
Puerto Galera. So Puerto Galera is the home port of my boat, right?
All
But
right.
it's not allowed to go there unless I have a permit from the mayor. And then the crew needs to all be tested.
So is
And
it
the
a
test,
militarized area? Are these ports?
not at all,
Docking?
not at
No.
all.
Oh,
I mean, there's a Coast Guard station, but they don't even have any boats, as far as I know. They screwed up their boats, so they're just, I mean, it's voila. There's no military presence or nothing. Um, but it's just like that. The LGU decides, and right now they've said nobody comes into Puerto Galera without an express permit from the mayor and these tests, and even the requirements are not clear. Right, we're volunteering to test the crew because we assume that they'll ask that. But then once we've tested the crew, the boat is there. Okay, can the boat come to the Batangas and pick up passengers? We don't know. We don't know if that's so. Long story short, I just said I gave up, and I said this is earlier on, when the guidelines were not clear, and it is not officially open for tourism. You know what they did? They went anyway.
Really?
They went anyway. They got another boat. They got the boat to pick them up in Batangas. They didn't get any permits of any kind, and they just did it. They went diving in Puerto Galera. They never left the boat. They just did it because the local government has no way of stopping them anyway, right? I mean, they have a barangay whatever patrol or something like that. The boat just never entered Puerto Galera Bay. They stayed outside in the dive sites, and nobody bothered them.
So Butch, it seems that the guidelines are not clear, and if they're going diving, the risk for infection is pretty low, right?
Well, for diving, I think Dr. Ben Vallejo would be more
Uh,
because he's with the marine science.
No. The act of diving, the risk of infection is zero.
Zero,
Right?
right?
While you're
Yeah.
underwater, it's zero.
Yeah, zero.
Okay, but it's not. That's not the situation. The situation is when they get back up on the boat, they take their masks off. You cannot be wearing the surgical mask the whole time. You have to eat. You have to drink. You're gonna talk amongst each other. You're gonna be social distance.
But
You know.
currently, Ben and I were discussing if COVID can be transmitted to marine animals. He said yes, it could be transmitted. I actually don't know what the mechanism is. I really don't know if the exhaled bubble from your regulator spreads it there. I really don't know. But regarding the local government or the municipal guidelines, it's true, no? It's still not well defined, and they are actually waiting for each other. The LGU is waiting for the national is waiting for LGU to give their input. So it's more of a waiting game. Someone has to bring up or recommend some guidelines for the LGUs to follow or to
So this
recommend.
this won't just be like staying at the beach. But it's also like diving and eat
Yes.
and
Yeah.
having your own tour. We,
Yes.
we need these guidelines.
Yeah. With regards to tourism in the coastal areas, it will include the establishments along the beach, the walking along the coastline, no, having a picnic in some island, no. Of course, an island would have a municipality taking care of it. You'll have to when you go down to it, you'll hihingan tayo ng papeles, no. Actually, tama ang sinabi kanina that many would just stay in their boats and probably just enjoy the boat ride as their tour rather than go down to the beach. No? It's really all about the guidelines right now. No, we are still not that confident in opening up industry. Although Boracay did open up, and we will see how it goes.
What would it take for us to be more confident? Uh,
Personally, I'd like to
Output?
see the R value at zero point 0.5 and less. The R value right now is 0.77, so we're not really that far off. Our positivity rate should be 5% or less as well. So if that happens, then we can open up. I like what was said about local tourists. No, I know a lot of. I have a lot of friends who've been everywhere: France, Germany, Switzerland, etc. But they've never been to Siargao or they've never been to Coron or Puerto Princesa. No, and I like what it says that the local tourists actually are the ones safer to let in rather than the foreign tourists, no? Especially if the country they're coming from has a problem, still a problem with high COVID rates.
So, what will be your input here? I guess the dialogue between the people in industry and scientists like you would have to start at some point, right, Butch? So,
I
like
would, yeah.
Apa, what would be? There's Ben. Hi, Ben. Before we go to that question, maybe Apa, would you know which countries we would open ourselves? We need to open ourselves, so we could open ourselves to.
I don't want to talk about inbound yet because
Uh-huh.
there's so many variables in that
Like airport, no? Airport
yeah, I mean,
protocols and.
there's so much stuff going on. The airlines themselves and what the flight is like. I mean,
But like, I think from your end, they would need input. I would suppose. Like,
well, yeah, you know, Berna knows what she's doing, and the problem is that she cannot impose on the LGUs. You know, she can suggest a set of guidelines. Certainly, I think she should do that, and I think she's in the process of doing that now. But she cannot impose and say, "Okay, you open up, you open up." Boracay they can do because it's under the national government. There's a task force Boracay,
yeah, it has
right?
its own task
and
force.
and they actually removed the corrupt mayor of Boracay who caused the environmental degradation. So they're in that situation where the national government can completely dictate on the LGU because they're under national government control. But
And
if you look
still
at
very much regulated, right?
yeah, if you look at the areas like the big boating areas are Coron, Busuanga, El Nido, okay, in Palawan. Puerto Galera is another one. Subic, um, to some extent Batangas because there's Punta Fuego and stuff like that. And in those cases, we're entirely dependent on the local government to come up with the regulations. No, some people are, you know, I mean, they're more informed than others. Punta Fuego is in. I'm not sure if it's part of Nasugbu or whatever, but the local government has basically said, hey, you want to go out in your boat, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo, right? They don't even have to get a permit, nothing. They can just drive to Punta Fuego as long as
Punta
they stay
Fuego.
in their cars and don't interact with anybody. Anyway, it's not cost any transmission. Punta Fuego has been open for months, no? So people who own boats in Punta Fuego have been able to go and visit their boats and take them out and do whatever it
But
is.
Puerto Galera is a different story.
Puerto Galera is a different story. And what's really I know about Puerto Galera is that their economy is totally dependent on tourism.
Tourism.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only reason that they're still going on today is, you know, they've got some residual trade with other places. They've got a high population who need to, I know, but they're having major problems because right now, so many resorts are closing down and the crime rate has gone up. There's a lot of starvation. There are people who just literally have
So,
nothing to eat.
so Ben and Butch, isn't this like something that we should? I mean, like scientists should step in because if it's the local government who's tasked to make the guidelines, then they need advice from scientists.
Yeah, I was approached by one of the some local hotel owners and managers, and asked for my input on how to advise the local government. You know, it's correct. It is the local government who will open up, because it is the local government who knows their own situation. No, what the R value there in that area, what the positivity rate there in that area, and how prepared their own citizens are in dealing with the pandemic, especially their own healthcare system. No, some areas only have one hospital. Some provinces or some municipalities, let's say 5 or 7 municipalities, will just share one hospital. So if you're going to open up the tourism industries, no, it should be the local government who should make their recommendation and their policies and their guidelines for people to follow. No, but some of the basic ones should be there. Like they should be tested prior to entry. There are some rules. Some who recommend limited quarantine upon entry, about 3 to 5 days before they can go out and enjoy the countryside or enjoy the beach. No? But yeah, that I agree with it. I agree that the local government should draft it. And as a scientist and as a doctor also, I actually subscribe to asking help from research groups, from
Yeah, because maybe they just don't know what to do.
oh,
Maybe there should be a guideline for making guidelines. Ben, we were asking a while ago whether where's the infection risk if you're going diving. Because Appa here has a boat that goes and they just dive. Would there be a lot of risk there if you're just in the boat and you go diving?
There's no evidence of coronavirus being transmitted through the water, yung underwater.
Kaya nga.
Okay.
So,
and besides, if you're diving, you're actually distant, physically distanced. There should be some physical distancing. Also, it's just like by boarding boats, no? There are guidelines even for commercial and recreational vessels that you're supposed to meet before you can board a boat. So,
but if it's your own boat, what if it's a private
even
boat?
then, kasi all of these boats are under, all of the vessels are under the oversight of Barina. So we will have to meet the requirements of Barina with respect to COVID-19.
So what are the requirements for you to sail?
Well, for commercial vessels, they already have yung first is the screening, the SARS-CoV-2 screening, okay? Whatever it's recommended now, before it is RT-PCR, no, but now they're looking into antigen testing because it's easier to do, and also you get the results in a quicker time, and it's easier to do and less expensive. So that's what they're looking at now. Now that's for the
yes, Appa.
Yeah, all of this is it's good and theoretical, but in practice, I'd like to point out two things. One, even before the pandemic, local governments tend to be really predatory, and when I say predatory, they're trying to insert fees and charge and so on and so forth as much as they can, So it is not uncommon in the Philippines. For instance, you go to a deserted beach in Palawan, and you think it's deserted, and then you're there, and then suddenly somebody emerges from the underbrush. Some people, right? They look like fishermen, and they say, "Oh, you have to pay 200 pesos per head to use this beach."
Oh.
Now, remember that a beach is a public property, right? To begin with, it is part of the eminent domain of the Philippines, and there is a particular rule that nobody can own it, right? And since it's inalienable, how can you charge money to stay on that beach? So they call it an environmental fee or whatever, and it is charged by the barangay. Okay. In most cases, there's no receipt. Okay. So this happened to me in Zambales. I went with my family. We went to a nearby beach, and there was, I think, something like 15 of us, and they wanted to charge us 200 pesos each. These guys came out of the underbrush, and they said, you have to pay 200 pesos to be on this beach. That's 3,000 pesos, right? Yeah. Now I swam to the beach from the boat, and I said, what do you think? I have 3,000 pesos in my trunks? And they were like, well, you just have to pay. And I said,
oh,
where's the official receipt? Aber, where's the official receipt? I want to see. And I want to see the ordinance that says that I have to pay. And they showed me this really crumpled Xerox that was barely legible that said, oh, it's a donation, environmental, like this, because these fishermen are cleaning up the beach, right? And I said, well, donation means voluntary. Okay. So I do not volunteer to pay you. All right. Don't charge me this money. Go away. And if you hang around here, suntukan na lang tayo. Gusto mo? I mean,
So,
you know,
they did force you. They did force you naman.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The second point is like this, no? This government, and I'm talking about this particular government, not just previous governments or whatever. They have attacked this whole COVID crisis from totally a law enforcement perspective, as if COVID affected people were criminals that had to be caught, you know, and everything is all about restriction and don't do this and don't do that. So the local governments have followed suit. For them, the response is restriction, restrict this, restrict that, charge for this, charge for that. Make sure the people have papers, diba?
Even if they, so how come people? Because that happened to us also, no, for Tagaytay. But maybe the real question is, I was just looking at the research, Ben, on the tourism and COVID. There are three phases: response, recover, and reframe. In fact, this is a major research field now. How from the response now should be recover, because if this is a major industry, maybe the discourse now is recovery.
It depends on it depends on the local government. Okay, I spoke with the local government official in which the opening of tourism is within the framework of their coastal resource management. So at least that LGU is framing it within their coastal resource management program. The opening of
which
tourism.
LGU is this?
Well, it's in Batangas, no.
Also,
now, I agree that it's not purely law enforcement. No, the problem is they need guidelines from the government agencies. Okay, like for instance, DOT. What are the guidelines from their provincial government? Also from academe, they were asking if we're going to reopen, what is the density of tourists that could be allowed to be on?
At least they're asking for data now.
Yeah, but those are proactive LGUs. Because there's a lot of LGUs who are just waiting for.
So it's a waiting game. So that's we have already hit on that problem.
Yeah. The point is, it really depends on the local government executive.
Yes, Apa.
To make up this move.
What this government has really demonstrated is its incompetence in terms of leadership. These guidelines, these things, they should have been talking about them in April at the latest. You know, they should have said, okay, let's talk about. They didn't come up with a plan. They have never come up with a plan for dealing with COVID. Okay, but if they had come up with a plan, that plan should have said, okay, this is how we're going to deal with COVID, and here's what we're going to do coming out of COVID. But nothing. There is no leadership. It's all knee-jerk reactions. It's the president telling people.
These are the guys trying to put some order in the situation. So where are we in terms of really having a plan?
There's none.
Wala.
To now.
That's why. Yeah, that's why it's left to the local government executives.
Now, remember, I'm being invited to all these webinars about that, but I couldn't accept all of those webinars because the problem is I have to teach and direct a research program. But the thing is, yung LGU, that LGU that asked me, because I know a lot of people there, so I'm quite willing to help them out. Besides, it's one of my research field sites, no. So if I help them out, then they will be able to help me out also with our scientific program. But the thing is, I just realized there are other LGUs are needing such inputs and
So two things really became very clear. No? So Boracay can open because someone is doing oversight over Boracay,
It's the
which
national
is
government. Yeah.
national.
National government siya.
Yeah.
Oh.
And therefore, if the rest will be local, then they cannot open.
Well, look at the headline of the Inquirer today. At least not the banner, but the picture, right? It's a group of operators in Anilao asking the government, let us open up. Diba?
Yeah, but Batangas is is one of the
There you go.
groups that are one of the provinces in which they are taking the initiative now. Kasi I agree
How
with
come the
Apa.
governor of Batangas is not on? There's no. It's really local, like the mayor. The governor cannot.
Yeah, local siya. Even up to barangay level, yung some barangay captains I
And still we are fighting for federalism. I think we're federal enough. Anyway, Butch, you seem to have become silent suddenly. You have the ears of government, so please say something. You're the one who suggested this topic.
Yeah, actually, it's a good topic because there's a lot of LGUs asking how to open up and how Boracay opened up, no, and I tell them it has to be based on local data, and when you open whatever industry you are in, whether you are coastal, where you are in the mountainous or hinterland area, no, whatever tourism you have.
Except that's like WHO have a kind of guideline also on when tourism can begin or how it can open up.
I haven't
So that
read.
then we can maybe there is.
Not specific for tourism.
Not specific for tourism. They have general guidelines on people mobility, opening up industry, not specifically tourism. There are specific problems with tourism kasi the influx of foreign visitors, for example.
But
We have
that's what they were all saying before. We cannot keep everyone, not traveling.
yeah.
WHO would have to work with the World Tourism Organization, which is a UN affiliated agency. So it's the WTO which will come up with guidelines in which the countries that have signed up to WTO will will adopt, no. Because example, I'm more familiar with the maritime industry because my research is on that, no. For example, International Maritime Organization has come up with its own guidances based on WHO general guidances in which how to implement COVID-19 suppression in passenger ships, cruise ships, and merchant marine vessels. No, so maybe we should look at WTO, yung World Tourism Organization. What do they have there? I haven't seen it. Perhaps we should take a look. They should have by now.
But actually, the problem is more fundamentally cultural, no? Because I think we've established that local government execs can actually they have enough autonomy to decide to open up, make their own guidelines and whatever. They could do it. The cultural problem is this, no? In government, it is so much easier to say no than to say yes. Okay? And this is a very simple statement, but it's very, very profound.
Even local government.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Oh, definitely. Because if you say yes and you allow something to take place and there are consequences later on, you are responsible for those consequences. Whereas if you say no, I'm not going to allow this to take place, there's no consequences. Because
right.
you're saying, oh, these are the rules, you can't do it.
Butch, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that if there is a time for government to discuss about guidelines, it is now. We experience a lot of knee-jerk guidelines or knee-jerk reactions. No, that's why there is confusion. There is like a waiting. Everyone's waiting for one another. Now that our new case totals are going down, our positivity rate is going down, or our value is going down. Now it's a time to talk about opening up industries, not just tourism, not just tourism, but uh, all industries. No, talk about opening BPOs, talk about opening banks, restaurants, tourism, the hospitality industry. I think early this week we had a DTI recommending 100% opening of some industries, right? And I think they're studying how to open those industries. I'm not exactly sure whether it's the manufacturing industry. I'm not exactly sure what industry they're talking about, but specifically for tourism, no. I think we should begin talking about that now, such that
At least
when the
find out
criteria,
where the issues are,
yeah,
because
Yeah.
it seems that there are many. There are many
yeah.
because there.
One of the issues, of course, is are the mobility of people, no. So flights.
Yeah, and who's going to make the decision eventually? But maybe there is a body that says if you can apply to that body, that it's the one that reviews it, and
Right now, the IATF, it's an interagency, so the DOT
maybe
is part of it.
tourism should be part of, because it's like a
Yeah,
6 million people
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
12% of the
Hey,
GDP.
the
Yes, yes,
IATF is
Apa.
totally dysfunctional. Okay. I mean, no, seriously. I
Yeah.
mean, what have they done? Instead of making the situation better, they have made it worse. One of the things that they did, they're a committee. They can decide on whatever. They should have been able to say, okay, this is they left it to the president who doesn't understand the first three words of any sentence, you know? And so they said, oh, can we do this? Can we do that? And he just looks at him, bala kayo. Diba? So what has happened? There is no leadership, right? The IATF cannot be a leadership organization because it's a committee. Somebody has to take responsibility and someone has to take charge. All right.
Yeah.
It's a good suggestion that there be a separate body to somehow enable or authorize the opening up of tourist destinations, review the guidelines of
I
the
think so.
whatever. But there's none. Are you kidding?
Because in Metro Manila, the mayors acted like that kind of leading body, right?
Yeah.
They regulated themselves.
Yeah. And,
Um,
and again, the instinct is always to say no, to not allow, to do this, to do that. You know, here's one of the really critical ones. Right now, even though we're GCQ and everything, seniors and children below the age of whatever it is, 21, are not allowed to go out.
I was
Seniors
going
are,
to ask that, Apa, does that affect the tourism industry? Because you cannot go out naman as a family if
Yeah.
your kids are not with you.
Exactly. We Filipinos move as families. What am I gonna
Yeah.
do? Leave my kids at home while I go on vacation? Are you kidding? Diba? I
Yeah.
mean, hindi nila pinag-isipan. It's not, walang nag-iisip.
And and that's why, would you suggest that we review this? I don't. I guess I don't understand, Ben and Butch. Why are kids really not allowed to? Because they can go to the park in
No, they
other
can't.
countries. No, I mean in other countries. In
Yeah.
other countries.
The point is,
Yeah.
well, the parents have legal right over their children, no? You just can't ban them not to go out if they were allowed by parents. Diba? So they have to review that policy, because the kids have they have to go out. It's for their own
And if we're
mental
going
and
to
physical
train
health.
them, if we're going to train them to behave in a way that is not infectious, that's going to lead to infection, then
Yeah.
we have to make them go out.
The reason why they adopted that is because there's really evidence if you're in a school situation that the infection rates may go up. No, but it doesn't mean that if you don't want them to go to school, you don't want them to go out. That's a totally different.
Yeah, because it's driving them crazy and it's driving
The basis is founded in immunology. For children, the immune system has not yet developed fully. So they have not developed the antibodies. So that's why we do vaccination for children. No? So their immune system might not be able to handle any new or novel virus. So that's why they're not allowed to go out. The reason why there are low cases of children dying because of quarantine. We're not letting them out, so they're not getting infected. And
But if they're going with the family,
yeah, the elderly or the older adults, naman, their immune system is getting weaker. As you grow older, your immune system is weaker. You're more susceptible, especially if you have comorbidities, like especially diabetes or hypertension. No? So those are the reasons why children and the advanced age population are not really recommended to go out during the GCQ or the quarantine. No? However, I think Ben is correct in that we should have a study. This is a good opportunity actually to share data between other countries, what their experiences are. No, right now, children actually not even I think below 20 years old bawal pa lumabas. And if you're 19, you're now no longer a child, and you have a fully developed immune system by then. No,
yeah.
yeah, so it will be
I
good
think
now.
Apa has a 15-year-old, right? I have a
Yeah,
you have
I
a
have
15
I have
year.
a 15-year-old who has a girlfriend. Okay,
So
he has
paano yan?
not he has not physically seen his girlfriend since March.
Ah,
That's a challenge. How do
it's
you
a
keep a
challenge.
relationship alive, diba? Entirely remotely.
Yes. So Apa, it's almost 4 o'clock. You have like parting words or a final message on this issue?
Yeah, sure. The tourism industry is a huge and important component of our economy. If we do not reactivate it, we will suffer tremendously. It will cause terrible misery, economic misery to the whole sector. We have
Right.
to do this. Government
Yeah.
is sitting on its
And
hands. Nobody wants to take responsibility.
yeah,
Nobody wants to decide.
it's
Nobody wants to lead. And
yeah,
that's a
it's
problem.
a social justice issue as well, right? If
Yeah,
there are many people connected, many industries and labor connected to this industry, then
sure.
imperative
Yeah.
to address it. So thanks, Apa. Maybe we'll talk about Manila White Sand in the future next time.
Sure.
All right. So Ben and Butch, your final words.
First, the situation of COVID in the country is getting a little better. We're experiencing, as you see in the everyday statistic, it is getting lower and lower. I hope we maintain that downtrend. Our value is also getting lower, meaning there is already control in the transmission of COVID in the communities. This is the time to talk about opening commerce industry. Not as a knee jerk guideline, but as a prepared guideline. No? So we need to talk with all sectors on how to open it safely, no? Including the LGUs. No? LGUs, doctors, scientists, everyone concerned with tourism should already be talking and proposing guidelines. No? We are at the point right now that we should be getting ready. We're not ready yet. That we should be getting ready in the eventuality that the numbers, the daily numbers, the transmissibility number, the R value is at a ideal status already. So we should get ready, and we should be talking right now. We should be discussing. We should be proposing. Government should be flooded with proposals so that every sector can be heard. Right? So now is the time to act, really.
And
Yeah, I agree with Apa about the tourism industry. No, actually, everything else, including the other services associated with it, the estimate is about 24% of our GDP. That's a huge proportion. So if we if we don't open up our travel and tourism industry, we will have a problem. But the thing is, there are now enough scientific information for decision makers to decide how and how to open the tourism sector. No, it's not just a knee jerk na you just open one island and without the quarantine controls and everything would be okay. So I see some positive signs that even our local governments are now being aware of that, and they're asking for input, no, and advice, no. Yun nga, but the thing is, we need a clearer direction from the national level, so we can make sure that all this travel in between the country's islands and cities would be easier, no? Some people are turned off by going to the police station just to travel. Di ba? We are no longer in that kind of emergency. We need to,
I don't think they know what to do either.
Huh?
I don't think they know what to do either in the police station. All right, so I think maybe this program will reach the right ears. I think it will because Apa is here. So and with that, we bid you goodbye. Thanks, guys, for talking with us, and see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for having me, Joey.
Yes, right. Thanks, House.